Thanks for tuning in to Shootie School. In this video, we'll be learning about editing and recording in the song track window of EZDrummer 2. If you're looking for a beginner's video, I recommend watching my Easy Guide to EZDrummer 2 video first, because here, I assume you've already watched my previous videos in this series, so there's no need for an introduction or specifications. I'll link to those videos in the description, and do check out my channel Shootie School for more EZDrummer 2 tutorials. Let's get started. There's not much to recording in EZDrummer 2. You should acknowledge that whatever we edit in this video can be applied to whatever beats you record with your hardware. Hardware being your electric drum kit, keyboard, or any other device that will trigger MIDI notes. If you do not have any of these hardware devices, you can record your own beat with your mouse in the song track by clicking in the tap to find while clicking, as discussed in my advanced tap to find video, which is capable of real-time quantizing. Or you could type into a search engine virtual keyboard and the name of your DAW and possibly figure out how to use your typing keyboard with your computer to trigger EZDrummer 2 with your DAW, or even more. Firstly, I have to assume you've plugged your hardware into your computer and that your computer recognizes your hardware. And then check in the EZDrummer 2 MIDI settings to see if EZDrummer recognizes the hardware. If not, I do have a setting up your hardware with EZDrummer video. And if you're still stuck, Google your exact experience for help, or go to the hardware manufacturer's forum or website and submit a support ticket. This stuff isn't always straightforward, combining many old and new manufacturers' hardware and software. Now you're ready to learn how to record. You can record in two ways. You can play everything at once, assuming you perform well enough, or you can play in multiple passes, laying down just an instrument or few at a time while looping, which would be a form of overdubbing. Let's look at the song track. If you don't know how to use the song track yet, you may want to watch my advanced song track video, which also includes in detail how to control the metronome. Here in the song track, we can record our beat wherever we want. You can also record however long you want. I'm going to record just a 2-measure long beat. So I'll select a 2-bar loop area by clicking and dragging in the ruler. I'll also go to the metronome setting and select on only when song track is playing, so we don't hear a metronome this entire video. Now I'll engage the metronome. The metronome is simply essential to record to if you want to edit your drum beats and use your drum beats with other MIDI files. There's really no other way around it unless you're a robot or superhuman. Notice that I have my loop set up from measures 3 to 5. That's simply because I want to hear the metronome through measures 1 and 2 before I start recording, which is typically called pre-roll. So I understand the tempo of the beat before I start recording and have time to be ready. Now, when I hit the record button, it engages, but the playhead does not move, meaning we are in record standby mode now. You either need to hit the play button to start recording or the space bar on your keyboard. I'll hit play. We can see the playhead leaving a large red block behind itself. Also, we can see that it is loop recording the 2 bars I've selected with the loop bar. I can start playing whenever I want at this point. Since I have it looping, there is no pressure to perform my beat in one pass. With my mouse, I'll literally click on the kick drum graphic and lay down my kick drum pattern. One thing to note is if you're using a wireless mouse that has significant latency, or you simply have low computer specs, your performance may sound a lot sloppier than it felt when you performed it. Now that we hear our kick drum performance, we can tell I didn't play it perfectly. And if we look at the quantize menu over here, we cannot quantize it while recording or during playback. This is one of the huge advantages that recording in the tap to find feature has over recording in the song track. If you want to hear your performance quantized while you play, which is really handy, watch my advanced tap to find video. For now, I'm going to try and tolerate my sloppy kick drum performance and lay my snare down in the next pass, but this time with my connected MIDI keyboard controller. It's not perfect, but pretty good. Let's hit stop. Notice our MIDI block is only 2 measures long, where we set up the loop. There's not 2 empty measures in the MIDI block before it. That's because we only decided to perform after the song track started looping. This is a convenient way and clean way to record. I want to keep adding to this drum beat, but my poor performance may affect my playing, so I want to quantize it before continuing. Knowing note durations is pretty important at this point. If you don't know them well enough yet to make quantizing decisions, you can just try experimenting here and use the undo button and try again, or maybe take a few minutes to watch my introduction to counting and note durations video on my channel so you can make fast and accurate decisions on the fly in the future. Anyways, my snare drum hits are far apart, so it's safe to say I could quantize the quarter notes to make them have a much tighter performance. But I do have 8th note kick drums in there too, so I can quantize the quarter notes, but I would lose some 8th note kick drums in my performance, like this. The playing is perfect now, but the kick hits are gone. Notice that you can see the tiny little MIDI notes on the MIDI block. I'll hit undo. Don't forget the undo and redo buttons are over here to step forward and backwards through your progress. We can see my original performance is back. Now, let's quantize to 8th notes. Now we're doing good to continue. I could disengage the metronome if it's distracting for you to hear the beat, but only momentarily because we're recording with this beat. I'll hit stop and click my playhead to the top of the track. Let me finish my beat with cymbals and hi-hat. I'll hit record and then play. Since I didn't wait for the song track to loop, we can hear I have created a little empty portion of my MIDI block here starting at the end of bar 2. Before I chop that off, I should quantize my performance first to not risk chopping off any notes that I recorded before the measure 3. Right-clicking. Quantize to 8th notes. I'm going to hit play to make sure all is well. And we're good. Let me switch from the default selector tool that we've been using to the split tool over here on the left. You'll notice that when I move the split tool over a MIDI block that it's snapping to every half note. So when you click, it will split precisely in time. A quick note is, the more you zoom in, the more precisely you'll be able to split, all the way down to 30-second notes if needed. You can see the grid in between the measure gaining more and more hash marks that can be snapped to and spliced at. But I simply want to make a cut right on measure 3 to get rid of the blank spot in my MIDI block, so I'll click with the splice tool. I'll reselect the select tool so I'm not running with scissors here. And now I'll right-click on the portion I want to delete and select remove. I'll hit undo a couple times. Alternatively, I could have just peeled the MIDI block back with my arrow tool like this. Now we have our new MIDI block that we've recorded on our own. It's really cool. Even though using pre-roll works great with many types of recording, and your musicians may request it because that's what they're used to, the process of editing out the empty portion of the MIDI block could have been avoided by simply not using pre-roll and just looping the beat until you're ready to record for this instance, which is what I'll start doing from now on in this video. The name in this MIDI block, hi-hat, derives from what the power hand is playing in this beat, which could easily be changed by re-recording the beat and switching the power hand to something besides the hi-hat, or using edit play style to change the power hand, which is covered in my edit play style video. By default, this is considered a verse beat and colored blue, which you could right-click on your file and go to Part, and change its color and song structure assignment here, which is really only essential when using the song creator feature in EZDrummer 2 or your personal organization, which is covered in my advanced song creator video. Most importantly is right-clicking and selecting Add to User MIDI so your beat is permanently stored in EZDrummer 2's User MIDI folder, which is covered in my advanced browser video on my channel. Right-clicking and selecting Find and then Search with Tags will bring you to the Search tab to help you find beats that are similar to yours as covered in my Advanced Search tab video. or you could simply search with tap to find. Again, check out my advanced tap to find video for more info. And lastly, you can select the tempo option, which is covered in my browser video, but notice this. If you use the tempo menu on a block already in your song track, that block will not automatically expand or shorten as it does in the browser tab. The tempo selections, which would be more accurately described as half-time or double-time feel, will happen within the bounds of your selected MIDI block. We should note that right-clicking a MIDI block will produce the same exact menu as the song track menu over here as long as the beat is highlighted in the song track. Except there is this one additional track option, which is covered in my advanced song track video. Now that the bottom half of this menu has been either explained or referenced out to its own separate advanced videos on my channel, let's get back to recording and editing. I'll delete the file that I recorded with multiple passes on my keyboard and mouse, and we'll assume that we have a drummer that can play decent enough to give me a whole beat in one pass. My loop area is still set up for a 2-measure beat. I'll hit record, and then spacebar to start the recording. Now that I've laid out my beat well enough to where I can quantize it with 16th notes, meaning out of all the notes I played, which were quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes, not any one of those note durations were more than a 16th note out of time. Now that I have my beat and it sounds fine, I could right-click and delete it by selecting Remove. But look what's under that option, Remove Notes. If I select that, I can delete just one of the instruments from my groove. If you happen to see aftertouch events here, that means a cymbal squelch, for example. Let's say the kick drum was too busy. I can delete just the kicks, like this. Now I have a beat with no kick drum, and could record again, but just adding kick in the next phrase, like this. Now I quantize it again. That's how you can delete just one instrument and overdub it. A quick note about cymbal squelches. If your eKit is capable of producing aftertouch signals to squelch cymbals, take note that it's a little buggy for me in version 2.1.8 on Windows 10. I will hear my squelches when I'm recording, but it won't always record them. If this happens to you, just simply do the takeover or possibly over a couple times. It will eventually record it correctly. Hopefully, that's just a bug on my end. Let me clear the song track. I'll record one more beat using only straight eighth notes, except at the very end do an eighth note triplet fill. This might seem like the same example from my tap to find video, but it's a different workflow. Here we go. Now let's quantize the eighth notes and listen. My eighth note tom triplets are gone. Why? Because we quantized to straight eighth notes, not eighth note triplets. So let's quantize the eighth note triplets instead and listen. Well, now our tom fill works as intended, but the hi-hats are not straight anymore. The point is, a lot of triplet style playing cannot be quantized while regular straight notes exist. Quantizing can only happen to a straight or triplet rhythm separately, not combined. Since only my toms are playing triplets, I could quantize the toms separately from the rest of the kit in the Edit Play Style window, like this. I'll select each tom and quantize the eighth note triplets. And then I'll select the rest of the instruments and select quantized eighth notes, or as I've been calling them, straight eighth notes, like this. Now we have a quantized beat with straight eighth notes and eighth note triplets. The Edit Play Style window is covered in its own advanced video on my channel. Let me hit undo so we have my original performance back. Let's use a different quantizing strategy. One way we can do this is split the beat where the triplets start and quantize the two blocks individually. This MIDI block is the straight eighth note beat, and I'll quantize it to straight eighth notes. This beat has the eighth note triplet fill, and I'll quantize it to eighth note triplets. Let's play them back to back. Sounds good, right? We can now select the two MIDI blocks, right-click, and select Merge, and have our performance in a single MIDI block. Great. Other examples will not be as easy as this though. When you're facing more complex straight and triplet combinations, you can try this method instead. Though I will use the same beat to accommodate my drumming skills, the method is different and similar to what I used in my Tap to Find video. I'll clear my soundtrack and record just the straight eighth note portion of the beat and only add an additional 2 quarter note kick drums where the fill belongs, like this. I'll quantize it to straight eighth notes since I only played straight note durations. This sounds fine. Now I'll move my loop down the grid and only record my eighth note triplet fill like this. Quantize to eighth note triplets and trim the fat off the beat. Now I'll make a splice depending on where my original MIDI block needs triplets added, which is the last 2 beats which still have kick drum hits. I'll right-click on my tom triplet MIDI block and select Copy, and then right-click on the last 2 beats of my splice MIDI block over here and select Paste Toms. I'll drag my loop back and hit play. Not only did it paste my tom triplets, but it merged those toms with the 2 kick drum beats as well. This is 2 separate ways you can incorporate and quantize straight notes and triplet notes into your beats. If this part of the tutorial seems not essential to you, but you continue to create and produce music as you pursue your hobby or career, this workflow will be needed sooner or later. Try not to forget about it. Lastly, you could edit note duration just as we did, but more quickly and detailed in your DAW. So check out my Using EZDrummer 2 with your DAW video if you're interested. Before I move on from recording, I want to make sure you're seeing the bigger picture here. I can literally take any MIDI file from my EZDrummer 2 library, bring it to the song track, and record and ad-lib and overdub anything I want on top of a stock beat and have a new beat for myself. The sky is the limit here. Moving on. Now that we've covered combining 2 performances to get one single complete performance, let's apply that idea to the already existing drum beats in our EZDrummer 2 library. I'll clear my song track. On the Browser tab, let's go to the Modern Vintage library, Mid-Tempo, Straight 4/4, and into the Pop Verse and select Variation 1 and drag it to the song track. I'll right-click on the MIDI block and select Loop Area and hit play. Notice the kick drum pattern. Now, let's go back up to the browser and play Variation 3 and pretend we like this kick drum pattern better, but that's it. Right-click on Variation 3 and select Copy. This workflow could also work with the MIDI files in the Search tab as well for your information. Now, go to the MIDI block in your song track and right-click on it, mouse over Paste. If you select Paste All, you will replace many kit pieces at once, possibly all of them. You can see how many kit pieces are standing by to be pasted from the Variation 3 beat in the Paste drop-down menu. But here, we'll just select the kick, because that's what we liked in the newly auditioned beat. If a kick drum existed in the original MIDI block, it would be overwritten by the newly pasted kick pattern, not merged. Bam! And now we have a new hybrid beat in our song track that is not yet in our EZDrummer 2 library. We just created it ourselves. Imagine having hundreds or thousands of different MIDI files and being able to copy and paste just the single instrument performances from one to another to create new MIDI files. Well, that's exactly what we have here. And after you're happy with the beat you've created in this song track, you can save it to the user MIDI folder in EZDrummer 2 so you can access it in the future as I've covered in my advanced browser video. Or you can send it to the edit playstyle function and refine your beat's performance even more. What is interesting to point out when pasting just individual instruments? When you do it in the song track, it's very straightforward. A kick will replace a kick and a snare would replace a snare, for example. But in the Edit Playstyle window, you can paste any instrument pattern to any other instrument, not just its matching instrument. Like pasting a kick drum pattern to a tom. This is good to know and explains the previously explained capability infinitely more, which is covered in detail in my advanced Edit Playstyle video. I'll close this. I'll clear the song track. I'll instantly create a brand new song never heard before with the song creator and drag it to the song track, which is covered in my advanced song creator video. I'll use my track overview handles to see the whole song at once. We can see the names at the bottom of the MIDI blocks and the color of the blocks to help us see at a glance what sections are what. And if we didn't prefer TuneTrack's predetermined formula for this, we could always right-click on a block and change its structure name and color by selecting Song Part, like this. I want to hear what the bridge sounds like and work on it. I'll right-click on the bridge block and select Set Loop Area. I'm zooming in with my mouse wheel. Now I can hit play and instantly loop that MIDI block. I want tambourine here. I can go to my search tab, which is covered in detail in my advanced search video. I'll select tambourine as my power hand and 4/4 as our time signature, since those filters represent what I'm searching for. I want this 16th note tambourine, and notice over here it says the file is only 1 measure long. I'll right-click and copy it. Now, I will paste this 1 measure MIDI file into this 8 measure bridge MIDI block. We hear the tambourine for the entire 8 measures. EZDrummer 2 will not only paste the tambourine, but it will duplicate the pattern until it fills your entire MIDI block. I will hit undo over here and the tambourine is gone. And just to clarify, I could hit the redo button and bring the tambourine back if I wanted. The undo and redo buttons remember many states as you move through your song track and Edit Playstyle window. Now back to the tambourine. I only want it to play on the last measure of the bridge as it builds back into the verse. There's no way to paste a pattern without it auto-duplicating throughout the rest of the MIDI block, so I will have to split the last measure off the bridge before pasting. A reminder is that we might have to zoom in to see more hash marks in our ruler. Here's where I'd like to split the block. Another way to engage the split tool instead of selecting it is to hold your Alt key or Command plus Option on Mac to temporarily engage it instead of selecting it over here. Now I've just cut the last measure out of the bridge. Now I paste the tambourine to just that last measure. It was a success. If you want to keep your song track clean, we can select the 2 MIDI blocks, the original section and the new tambourine section by clicking one, holding Shift, and selecting the next. They are both highlighted. Now right-click and select Merge. Now we have a new custom single MIDI block. If you like it enough, you may want to save it by adding it to your user MIDI as explained in my advanced browser video. Let me zoom back out. If I mouse over the end of a MIDI block, I will see a scrub tool that can shorten or lengthen a MIDI block. Keep in mind, a track cannot be lengthened more than its original duration. I'll scrub this MIDI block back a few beats. Take note that at the bottom of the MIDI block is a tiny peeling page graphic. This will let you know at a glance that you've edited the duration of this beat, and that it's capable of being lengthened. Now, if I wanted to select every MIDI block on a song track, I could right-click on an empty space and select Select All. At this point, we can make global adjustments to every MIDI block with the right-click menu. I still have that tambourine in my copied memory. I could paste it to the whole song if I wanted, like this. I could remove a single instrument from the whole song, like this. I could mute the whole song, which might be good if I'm using MIDI in my DAW and I don't want to hear the sounds trigger twice. I could quantize the whole song, which would probably be pretty destructive or possibly handy. I could save the entire song as a single MIDI file by adding to user MIDI. I could play the song twice as fast, doubling its parts, or play it twice as slow, though as explained earlier in this video, this option would not shorten or lengthen the entire song. This is how we select all and can make global adjustments. I'll unmute. Let's say here at the end, I want a typical double chorus. I could right-click and copy my chorus, and then immediately after the chorus, right-click in an empty space and select Paste All. I'll hit Undo. Alternatively, I could hold Control, Command on Mac, and click and drag that chorus MIDI block to duplicate it and drag the copy where I want it. Let me take that copied chorus and drag it over and drop it on a portion of the previous chorus. It overwrites it. Take note that the chorus portion that was overwritten now has a page peel graphic in the lower corner of its block, a clue that we're not seeing the entire MIDI block. Let's say at measure 41, the bass player will take a 2-measure solo while the band drops out. That's no problem. Let's zoom in until we can see measures 41 through 43. Let's make a couple splits. Right-click on the new MIDI block that we created that occupies measures 41 through 43 and select Mute. We can now see the MIDI block has darkened and has an X'd out speaker icon. We went through a lot of stuff pretty fast. If you needed a slower and less detailed version of editing in the song track, watch my Easy Guide to EZDrummer 2 video starting at about 40 minutes and 40 seconds. I cover the whole song track workflow with a different approach in that video, and it might even be a good recap for you as well. I want to take a moment and try to get you to envision what we've been learning in all of my advanced video series videos, especially this editing video. I've covered every aspect of editing I can think of, but not every technique with examples because people simply don't click on a 4-hour-long video. If you're super detailed about your drum beats and don't want to use a DAW to create your MIDI, EZDrummer 2 can get the job done 99% of the time. It really can. If you don't see that, you need to take a few steps back and have all of the EZDrummer 2 tools in mind, and try to envision a sequence in which to use them to achieve your personal goals. I may be able to complete a complex beat in my DAW in 3 minutes, which will take 30 minutes of workarounds in EZDrummer 2, but it's still possible. You can zoom down to the 30-second note in your song track and splice to make tiny, small edits. You can access different articulations of instruments and tap to find and edit play style, and cut and paste from those into your song track beats and mix articulations. Anything you hear in your EZDrummer 2 library can be copied, manipulated, and pasted onto anything else. It's amazing when I see new tune track customers go to the support forums and complain about the price when they're only thinking about the sounds that EZDrummer 2 makes, not the other 90% of the features that come with this software. And I am in no way sponsored by TuneTrack. I did ask, I did successfully get my request to the right department, but with no responses, unfortunately, from the top of the food chain. So just know that I'm authentically excited about this product. I have nothing to lose whether TuneTrack appreciates my effort in promoting them or not. So next time you run into some challenges with EZDrummer 2, firstly, see if I have a specific video for your issue. If not, just back away from the project for a moment or a day and think about EZDrummer 2's tool set. You'll be surprised at what you can figure out with this software when you're not only understanding its capability, but have enough experience with the program to have all its capabilities in mind in real time while you work. At that point, your roadblocks will turn into small speed bumps, and they will get smaller and smaller the more you use the software. You still have to work for it, but hard work tends to pay off. So that's it. If you learned anything new about recording or editing with EZDrummer 2 after viewing this video, please like and subscribe. Your comments and corrections are always welcome below. In fact, if you don't despise my voice at this point, I'd appreciate it if you put an insanely random fact in the comments about anything in existence, just to let me know that you have a pulse and that you didn't spitefully leave after making it this far in the video. Thanks for tuning in, and rock on.